Hey everybody, welcome to another math video. For this video, I'll be going over slope. Alright, so let's get started. Okay, so this is what we'll be going over. Pretty simple, straightforward. Okay, so you may have heard slope as described as the change in y over the change in x, and that's true. It's also the amount you go up or down over the amount you go to the right. So for slope, we're talking about more linear stuff, straight lines, not so much curves, but it's the same basic principle if you're talking about curves, because it's just the change between points. Really, but we'll be looking at slope as it pertains more to straight lines. Okay, so the formula, you may have seen it before. It looks something like this. So let's go over the parts. So this is the variable that we use for slope. That's your m. These are your y coordinates, and these are your x coordinates. So you need at least 2 points in order to calculate for your slope. And so the way we read this is y sub 2, y sub 1, x sub 2, x sub 1, because these are all subscript numbers. Okay. Now, another important thing I do want to point out is you have to be consistent when you're putting your points in. So if you start with a particular y, you have to use the corresponding x with it. Okay? You can't mix and match. And this will make a lot more sense when we go through the examples. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so let's calculate the slope between these 2 points. Alright, so we're going to start off with the slope formula. And we're going to substitute in all of our numbers. So watch what I do here really carefully. Okay, so you see here, I start off with the 3 as my first y. So I'm using this one here. So that means in the x, I have to use the corresponding x coordinate first. So you can see here, I started with 4 first. Alright, and that's important to do, or important, because you don't, like I mentioned in the last slide, you don't want to mix and match. Okay, so I simplify. Do the subtraction first, and then if you can, simplify your fraction. There. Now, if I did it the opposite way, and I did the 6 first, then I have to start with the y first and the x's. Yeah. So if I start with the 6 for the y's, I have to use its corresponding x and the x's when I subtract. Okay, and again, I'll simplify and simplify. Okay, so it's important, whichever ordered pair you start with, both x and y have to show up first in your formula. Otherwise, you'll get all kinds of weird answers. Okay, so let's take a look at another example. So let's say this time you have a picture. So you can, of course, use the 2 points to calculate the slope. Right, so if you need the 2 points, we got 2 marked already. You just get the ordered pairs, and then we just use the slope formula again. Okay, pretty straightforward. Now let's say that you're like most math teachers, you're lazy. You don't want to go through the entire process, doing the whole formula, finding the points. So what we can do is we can actually look at the graph, and this only works if you have the graph with you. If it was like the last example where you have 2 points, then you got no choice but to use the formula. But if you got the picture, well. So what we like to do is we like to go left to right, because that's how we actually read in our society, from left to right. If you're from an Asian society, you probably go right to left, and that's fine too. But since I'm used to going left to right when I read, I'm going to go left to right. So I'm going to start from this point here, and I'm going to go to this point here. So remember, I mentioned earlier, slope is the change in y over the change in x, right? Or the amount you go up and down over the amount you go to the right. So, since this is going down, we're going to go down from this point to the point where we hit this point's horizontal level. So we're going to go down 2. Okay? So that brings the point down to here. From here, we're going to go to the right. And it looks like we're going to go to the right 3 times. So that's how we get our slope of -2 over 3. If we just have the picture. Because going down in the y direction is going down is like going in a negative direction. And going to the right in the x direction is positive. So you got a -2 over a positive 3. Okay, so that's pretty much it for this one, guys. Slope, pretty straightforward. There's a couple different ways we can do it. Like I mentioned, if you have the points, then you got to go through the formula. And if you got the picture, you can use the picture to help you. You just pick 2 points. Hopefully they're nice points. And you either go up and down first, and then you go to the right. Alright, guys, so if you need a refresher, just go ahead and click back to whichever slide you need to get back to. Otherwise, that's it for this one, and thanks for tuning in.